How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, man. It's a great day to have you on the show. Couldn't be more perfect timing. Crazy what's going on with mind medicine today. Obviously, you're
Uh,
aware of that.
yeah,
And
no, a great catalyst for sure.
great catalyst for the whole sector. And very excited to see what Psyched Wellness is doing today. You guys are doing great. Stock is up
Yeah,
20%. You want to speak on that at all?
yeah. No, listen, I think we're working hard, as you know, and when you're in preclinical studies, there's some lulls between when studies get completed and what you can do. But my team is very focused on helping us get the messaging out. So we've been working hard on that. And over the last sort of 2 weeks, there's been some video content, some feature articles where myself or Professor Nutt are talking about, Amanita Muscaria and what we're doing with muscimol and our AME-1. So we're really trying to get that messaging out. And then, we filed our Q1 financials. So the blackout period ended. And I thought it was just to come in and buy a good chunk of stock at the levels. I think I paid about just over 25 cents for 500,000 shares. So I just, I could have exercised 10-cent options. And my wife probably would have preferred that I do that, but that wouldn't show to the our investors in the street that I'm aligned and I believe it's cheap here. So I didn't want to just exercise cheap options. I wanted to go in the market and show that I support it, and I'm buying here at 25 cents. And I think it was too cheap, but the whole sector was down. So that was just sort of me trying to say, hey, listen, we think there's a great opportunity here.
So the psychedelic sector has been just getting beat up, right? It's been getting beat up and people have been panic selling all over the place. And I've been telling people, I'm like, I don't know why people are panic selling. This is a fast growing sector. It's going to be one of the hottest sectors in the world. And early stage investors that got into cannabis, that got into plant-based foods, that got into technology have all made a killing, but it didn't happen overnight. And I've been trying to constantly remind people of this, and I know you've been in the markets for a long time. Would you agree that, and I know this for a fact, all the people that are successful investors are long-term investors, or are they day traders?
Yeah, it's so hard to time the market. And that's when you get killed because you miss things. You don't know when a catalyst is going to come out, when a press release that transforms the company comes out. So I agree. You want to be conscientious in how you position your portfolio, because let's face it, the sector we're in is a very high risk sector. Where most of us are penny stocks. Some of them are billion-dollar companies, but there's still, when you look at pharma, it's phase 3 studies are yes or no, so there's still a lot of risk in the sector. So I think people who are coming in now, you want to have a position, you want to have a core position. Maybe you trade around it based on your feeling, because people buy stock to sell stock. And I come to the issuer side from institutional sales and trading. So I spent 15 years plus walking different management teams around to institutional portfolio managers. And so, the most important thing when I'm trying to sell a deal in those days was liquidity. Because if I'm going to take a big position, how do I get out? How long does it take me if I need to? Or how can I add to it without driving the price up? So one of the keys that I focus on as a public company CEO is to ensure that I'm getting the messaging out and that I can always have a pretty steady flow of liquidity so that people are able to trade. Because if you can trade in and out of a stock, you're more comfortable holding it. You know that if something happens, you can trade in and out. And I think that's a key thing. And with this sector, we're very early days, as you know, Rich. And I think that if you look back to the beginning of the cannabis sector, they had the ups and downs, and it's normal. So, MindMed, great catalyst, NASDAQ listing, fantastic. Atai Life coming out, I'm hearing it's between $3 and $5 billion for their IPO valuation. That's massive. When you look at Compass and how that had that great effect for the whole sector, now multiply that, right? So I think there's some really good things happening ahead of us for sure.
So let's talk a little bit the Atai Life. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Obviously, you're mentioning the IPO coming out, how it could be $3 to $5 billion market cap. What does that mean for the sector having another IPO? And do you know exactly when we can expect the IPO to launch?
So I'm hearing end of May is sort of what I'm hearing, but who knows? Credit Suisse, I talked to one of our shareholders, a portfolio manager at a hedge fund. He said, Jeff, it could be as early as 2 weeks. So, wow. My understanding is they're doing sort of a last little round now where they're trying to get some sort of celebrities in the name before the IPO. But they've raised a tremendous amount of money. It's going to bring the mainstream media attention, just like Compass did. So with that, you get a lot more, mainstream media, financial media talking about the sector. It's going to drive eyeballs. And one of the great things that we have now as a sector is we have the Horizon Psychedelic Index Fund. So when retail looks at this and says, how do I get involved? Well, they can buy that. I was speaking with a gentleman who said that Fidelity has basically cloned the Horizon Index as well.
Wow.
So there's an opportunity where the U.S. investors can buy the psychedelic index. I can't verify that, but I talked to some of my friends in the U.S. that are checking on it. I've also heard of another index fund, psychedelic index fund, that's going to start in the next couple of weeks in the U.S. And it's been suggested to me that Psych will be included in that as well. So there's some great catalysts happening. I think that adoption and providing liquidity and an opportunity for retail to get involved is important. And I think an index fund at this stage is probably a great way for people to get that exposure.
So can you give us an update on the preclinical trials that Psych is going through right now?
Yeah, so we are right now, we're just going to commence. We'll have a press release out next week talking more about it, but our 14-day oral toxicity study, and we'll come back from that. We're working on some other stuff with the anti-inflammatory as well, so we expect to have some news and some updates on that front. So it's going well. There's been no red flags. There's been nothing to suggest this doesn't move into the next phase, because as you can imagine, preclinical studies are just a selection of individual studies that you have to complete one before you can start the next one and move on and create that foundation. So we're very pleased with how things are progressing, and we will update you with those press releases when we get them.
Fantastic. And I was going through an article about Amanita Muscaria written by Benzinga. Can you go through this article for us and break it down for investors to better understand the potential therapeutic effects of this legal psychoactive mushroom?
Yeah, that was great. So Benzinga is a great platform for us to get involved, because they've got, I think, 1.5 million unique viewers every month on their platform. Wow. And they focus in cannabis and the psychedelic space. So Nathan, who did the interview, both myself and Professor David Nutt. So you got the talking CEO piece, who's talking about the markets and that, and then you've got the science side from Professor Nutt, which is great to have, because he's he's the professor at Imperial College, the chair of the scientific advisory board for Compass Pathways. He's one of the top 5 sort of thought leaders in the modern renaissance for psychedelics. And he's very passionate about Amanita Muscaria, Muscimol, and our extract AME-1. He wrote a paper on it 30 years ago about the potential of GABA receptors. And it's not until more recently that they've started to understand the GABA receptors and GABA A specifically. So there's some really cool things. It talks about potential for addiction, for pain, for insomnia. There's a lot of really, really cool things that we'll be looking at as we go forward with this.
Wow, I'm looking forward to that. Let me ask you a question. So we're in a crazy time right now where cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin is like everywhere. Would you ever consider doing something with blockchain with your company? Because it's like one of the hottest sectors right now. And it seems like everyone that's doing something with blockchain is exploding. Is that something you would ever consider?
We're going to stay in our lane. We've got, I think, something very unique in the sense that we're the only public company focusing on Amanita and Muscimol. So, you've got 10, 15 companies that are focused on psilocybin or LSD or DMT. They're competing for eyeballs and competing for that. We have a unique opportunity where, we have enough on our plate, just from what I suggested with insomnia and pain and addiction. There's enough opportunity on this one compound to go forward and be a company maker. So we're going to stay pretty focused on that, is my gut sense. I love the space. I'm involved with Graph Blockchain, which recently just started buying altcoins. As a founder in that company, and I've advised them and helped them on market strategy. So I love the space. I think it's really cool. And I think it's nice to see that sort of resurgence. Obviously, it's a little tough this week with Biden's announcement on taxing capital gains and potentially taxing crypto. So it's taken a bit of wind out of that sail. But, I think it's really, really interesting. And I think we're going to see some very cool companies come up, because that technology is phenomenal. Blockchain technology is great.
I just think it was weird watching Elon Musk, the leader of electric vehicles, say, I'm going to buy $1.5 billion of Bitcoin, right? And put it on the balance sheet. And it's actually worked. It actually helped the balance sheet, because I'm pretty sure he made like $2 billion on that investment. So the balance sheet blows up, it helps the stock. And now he's telling people that you can use Bitcoin to buy his vehicles. So I was thinking, well, maybe psychedelic companies might let people use cryptocurrencies to purchase psychedelics, something along those lines. And I mean, that's just something I just thought of.
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised to see it, because, Bay Street loves to do the combination of whatever's hot and put it together.
Yeah.
I've been guilty of that in the past. If you look at the history of Graph Blockchain, we did that. So I'm not pointing fingers. I just think we have something pretty special and unique with Amanita. And for psych wellness specifically, we're going to stay in our lane on this one.
And I like the fact that you're staying in your lane. I mean, Mind Medicine is a great example of that. I mean, I interviewed them when they first got started around 30 cents. They're now up 1,000%. And one thing I remember that they said specifically, Mr. Wonderful, he said, we're not going to do recreational. We're going to stay medicinal. And he actually said, Kevin O'Leary, for anyone who doesn't know who Mr. Wonderful is, billionaire investor, Shark Tank, Dragon's Den, and he's very involved in Mind Medicine, which is very good for the sector because you got a very powerful, influential influencer, essentially, on a very global scale that is pushing this sector, right? And getting all his friends involved. And I don't think it's by mistake that Mind Medicine's up 1,000%. But he always said, the second that we lose our focus, or the second that this company doesn't focus on medicinal, I'm out.
Right.
And that really caught my attention. I was like, wow, he's really focused on medicinal. He's staying in his lane. And I like the fact that you're staying in your lane. You're not trying to grab headlines. You're just staying in your lane, focused on your research, focused on developing the business. I like that. I think that's really good. And that's the right way to grow a company. We've covered a lot of great topics today. We've talked a lot about a lot of the things that are happening with the company. You guys are doing a lot of great things. You're having a great day. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the show. Is there anything else you want shareholders to know before we sign off today about Psyched Wellness, that, you know, anything that you're working on, anything new, anything exciting that we can expect around the corner?
Yeah, listen, we are working on stuff. I'll just say that, you know, keep your eyes open, and we do it. We try to do our best to get the messaging out and make sure that when something happens, people see it, whether it's with, you know, interviews with yourself or feature articles that went out with Psychedelic Finance today. We're trying to stay in front of people so that they understand it and push our press through those social channels. So we're excited. I've got a lot in front of us. My team's doing great work, and it looks like there's a little bit of you know, favor coming back into our sector. That momentum's coming back. So I'm looking forward to it. And, you know, I'll be in touch for sure as things progress. I'd love to keep your audience in touch with what's happening.
I was going to ask you one more question I just thought of. So I heard yesterday that the SEC has imposed a rule with short selling. Are you familiar with that?
I didn't see that. No.
Okay. Well, I don't know if this has
so
anything...
similar to like what we have in Canada. So you can't do naked shorts.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly. I was reading an article about it, but apparently they're imposing that you actually have to have cash on hand. You can't just borrow. You actually have to have cash on hand in order to short sell. And based on that, we started to see a lot of penny stocks moving again over the last 2 days, and small caps moving again. I don't know if that has anything to do with the resurgence in psychedelics, small caps, penny stocks, but I've really seen a resurgence since the day that they announced this change, which was April 22nd, which was yesterday. So maybe something for you to look into, but hopefully for small cap investors, that can be a signal that we're turning the corner, because it's been a tough couple months in the small caps. Would you agree the last couple months have been pretty tough?
Very tough. I think, well, listen, I think there's a bit of a vacuum where a lot of that risk capital went into crypto, right?
Yes.
And it was very hot. And so, you know, you see that Canada's very, in my opinion, Canada's very much a momentum trading environment where, you know, it's sentiment driven. And when that sort of moves, it moves. And regardless of whether the fact, like our company, for example, is a much better company than it was when we IPO'd, right? And when we're at 70 cents, we've added so much value, we've de-risked, we've raised the money, we're sitting on about 7 million in cash. We're in a great cash position. So, you know, when you look at all those pieces and then be at half the market cap, it's very frustrating, but that's the nature of the beast that is the markets. And, you know, again, we just have to stay focused, you know, get the messaging out when the reception is there, when the market cares, you know, make sure that we're feeding the beast, if you will, and going from there. But yeah, I think these markets are great. I'm excited. I think going into summer, I think we're going to have another summer like we had last year, where because of COVID, it's not going to be that typical sell in May and go away. I think we're going to have that continued sort of liquidity and trading and interest in the summer months, and especially with Atai Life and that IPO and all the press that's going to come around that. I'm excited about the sector.
Yes, we have some catalysts coming. We got Mind Medicine moving to the NASDAQ on Tuesday. We got the Thai Life coming, like you said, at the end of May, maybe sooner. So there's some big catalysts coming for the sector. All of a sudden, small caps are starting to turn around. And I say this all the time, when stocks are down, that's when you want to be buying. But unfortunately, there's so much fear and panic when things go down, people get scared, which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
How do institutions deal with this? Like, you've been on the institution side. Is it the institutions that are driving these stocks down? Is it retail?
No, it's retail. It's
retail.
retail. Institutions, typically when they take their position, and that's why you don't want to just do a placement. If you're doing a private placement and you're a micro cap, small cap, you don't want to do it all to institutions, even though you want that money, because they typically don't trade. So now all of a sudden you're going to have, 9% of your float that's just not in the market. And then when they do trade, there's a catalyst for it typically. And if it's not because you've executed and they're just slowly getting out of a position, if they're doing a rebalance or something, they're ruthless. So it's you want to be careful on how you sort of position your shareholder base. But I think for our sector right now, especially in your sub 50 million market cap, is largely a retail driven sector. And we just have to stay focused on delivering. And again, I think the key thing is the companies that have cash that they're not timing themselves to perfection, trying to wait for a window where the market's higher and they can raise more money. I think that's a key thing, because you just never know when that momentum changes. So, we're pretty comfortable. We're not sitting obviously with the largest cash position in the sector, but we've got enough for what we need for this year into next. So we're in a great position that way.
I think Mind Medicine is actually also similar to you guys. They've kind of led the way as far as raising capital, because
for sure,
they're years away from revenue. So it's not like the revenue is the reason why they're moving to the NASDAQ. It's because they have 205 million in the bank and they've got a share price that qualifies them. They've got money in the bank. So they've raised 205 million in the bank. So for all the small caps in the psychedelic space, they're the leader with money in the bank. Would you agree that that's been really the only difference between them and everybody else?
Yeah, no, they were one of the first listed. They have a great team. They've got as you mentioned, they've got a celebrity type team what people recognize. And the great thing with Kevin O'Leary is not just Canadian, it's US as well. So you're bringing those eyeballs across the border. They worked very quick. Terry Booth is on my board. We talk regularly about strategy going forward, and love him or hate him, he built a massive company and he did a lot of acquisitions and he raised a lot of money. He and I have talked, and I'm cognizant of not looking to do an acquisition for the sake of an acquisition. I think as I said, in our lane, we've got a great opportunity here. If there's something that complements and makes sense for Amanita specifically and what we're doing, then we'll look at it, but otherwise, no. But it was key for us to go and get that money. We didn't need it at the time. We had enough, but to go raise the money and show the street that, hey, we're in the index. We got Terry, we got Professor Nutt, we're in the index. We just raised money. It was a bought deal on a 4-month-old private placement. That doesn't happen very regularly. So, again, love Canaccord or hate them, for them to step up and say, okay, we're going to do a bought deal on a 4-month-old private placement. It's pretty unique. So we've had some really special things happen, and we're just going to keep delivering. And hopefully the market, recognizes that. We're going to do the best job I can do with the tools I have in my toolbox to let the market know what we're doing. And I hope people, hope they believe in what we're doing.
Now, speaking on that, there's going to be investors from all over the world that will see this interview. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you if they'd like to learn some more about your company, or if there's another company that wants to do a joint venture or a business transaction? What's the way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, my contact information is on all of our press releases. It's also on our website. So it's very easy to shoot me an email. You can call me, text me, WhatsApp me. I'm pretty much available on all those channels. So, Google psychedwellness.com and you'll get Jeff Stevens coming up pretty easily. So I welcome that. I really enjoy the investor feedback, good and bad, and I've had some bad, when you go from 70 cents to 20 cents, it's challenging for people, and I'm cognizant of that. And as long as that interaction is respectful and constructive, then I'm happy to engage in it. And I think stepping in and buying the stock this week was just me demonstrating to everyone that, I believe in what we're building. It was over $100,000. That's a big position for me. And, I want people to know that what we're doing, I believe in it. Our team believes in it. And, we think there's brighter days ahead for sure.
Thank you for your time today. The CEO of Psyched Wellness, Jeff Stevens, symbol PSYC in Canada. PSYCF in America. Now, remember, guys, Rich TV Live is strictly for education and information purposes. Please do your due diligence. Please do your research before you invest in anything that we talk about here in Rich TV Live. If you like the video, smash the like button, comment down below, share the video everywhere, and subscribe. If you're not winning, you're not watching. We bring you winners and we bring them to you first. Thank you for joining us today, Jeff. Let's get you on the show again soon. Keep up the great work. Congratulations on a successful day. And hopefully we just continue moving in the right direction.
I appreciate your time, Rich. Thanks again.
Always a pleasure, Jeff. Have a great day. And thank you for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.